Okay, I am just going to read you this quote because it makes my life easier. But recently, the Toronto Star did an article and they reached out to WWE, and this was the quote they were given. If you look at the gory self-mutilation that bloodied several women in the December 31st event on TNT, it quickly becomes clear that these are very different businesses. Oh no. You can imagine how the internet reacted to this, and I suppose it does get into this whole thing about WWE versus AEW, which is also kind of wrestling versus sports entertainment. Personally, I see it in the sense they are basically fighting for the same audience, so I will just take them and lump them all in. The real fascinating part when you break down this stance, though, is that in many ways, AEW is beating WWE at their own game. Why? Here's why. Before we start, it does have to be said that WWE uttering words like this is kind of a silly thing to do. Because you can go on the WWE network right now, which WWE sells to people and wants you to take money out of your wallet and pay for, and see some truly gory stuff. And I understand that this is in the past, but if you were so against it, why the hell would you want it out there? I mean, that whole approach was exactly what made the Attitude Era so edgy. And actually, if you do go back in time, you can see that Vince McMahon has tried this once before. Because WCW was basically like, oh man, blood and violence, we're gonna do all of this. McMahon was like, well, we can't do that, so we don't like it. But as soon as the then WWF did start doing it, ratings went like this, and it threw through the roof. So they were like, well, hey, if it's working, we'll keep on doing it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Of course there's nothing wrong with that. You do have to find the line and not step over it, and all wrestling companies have done that, but it's about reading the room, and if that's what people want, give it to them. I should not have thrusted. And the real reason for this madness is that AEW won the Wednesday Night War and essentially killed off NXT before it was reborn as NXT 2.0. So yes, all of a sudden, you start a new battle in the form of sponsors. I mean, WWE went PG because they wanted to attract more advertisers, which again is really smart, but you shouldn't take a blanket and go, well, that's the rule for all professional wrestling, because, you know, between you and me and nobody else, that would be nuts. And sure, maybe some of Vince McMahon's executives do think that if you get too bloody, you are going to scare other people off, but here's the thing. WWE going to be around for a long time, right? So eventually, they will once again do some kind of hardcore match that makes you go, oh, I cannot believe I'm watching here. And then what have you done? You've just opened the door for people to scream through, you've been a hypocrite. Why didn't you just say silent? This is basically like when you're on Twitter and you see two people arguing and you think, well, I'm going to give my 2 cents, and you get involved. You didn't need to do that, and you just ruined your day. And getting back on track too, it's not actually this self-mutilation, which is why AEW's audience is growing. Like, I'm sure it appeals to some people, but actually what Tony Khan is doing, if you do stare at it from afar, which sounds a little bit creepy, is essentially saying, well, what did WWE and other successful companies do in the past? Maybe we should do some of that again. What I am talking about here is building stars for the future. I mean, look at Darby Allin. Hands up if you weren't overly familiar with Darby before Dynamite started. Oh, my hand stays up because I'm not. And then there's somebody like Britt Baker. Britt Baker is an absolute ratings draw. And if you don't believe me, just go look at the figures. Jade Cargill has done the same. And then there's Jungle Boy. Who doesn't like Jungle Boy? He is going to explode one day. I mean, he has a face that a mother would want to kiss. That's not the saying. A mother would want to hug somebody that you'd want to take home from your mother. We're here now, I think we should just move on. You also get these relationships between the new guard and the old guard. Look at Sting and Darby Allin, for example. So if you are a new fan because you've been brought on by the legendary wrestlers, you can then pick a new one and just enjoy their journey. And it's not like WWE can't do this. I'll mention the name Bianca Belair as somebody who is having a good ride. But when you actually try and think of more names, well, you run out quite quickly, or you come up with one like Gunther. I don't want to talk about it. And straight away, as soon as you start talking about this, usually the response back is, yeah, but who's the biggest star between Kenny Omega and Roman Reigns? But that actually doesn't matter. Both these guys are smashing it. But whereas Kenny Omega spent a huge portion of his time ensuring that Hangman Adam Page got up to the next level, as of me talking, Roman hasn't really done the same thing. And it's not his fault. That's what he's being told to do. But the Roman Reigns push has only served the head of the table to the point that when we had to change plans recently and give the WWE title to Brock Lesnar, everybody went, Well, now there's no one else for Roman Reigns to feud with, and you never want to be in that position. So while this is a bit of a stretch, you'll have to forgive me, WWE is kind of doing what WCW was doing when they were on top, whereas AEW has gone back to what WWE, or then WWF, was doing then, and adding in a little bit of World Championship Wrestling, ECW, and a bunch of other older promotions. If nothing else, they have created something that fans are gravitating towards, and they ain't reinventing the wheel. They're happy to put 4 circles on their car, but go look at that vehicle, it's able to ride. And even if WWE wants to continue skipping down this lovely rosy path, that's more than fine, but do not pretend that if you turn on AEW, you're watching some kind of bloody Street Fighter show. It's just not true. But also, when it comes to professional wrestling, you want absolutely everything. You want the gore, you want the blood, you want the violence, you want the promos, you want the backstage skits. You won't like it all because that would be ridiculous. Think how many hours of wrestling we get in a week. But if you want to do a crazy Hell in a Cell because the story says you should do it, or the same with a blood and guts match, but don't stay away just because, oh my gosh, what are people going to say? Look, we've done it before, we'll do it again. You can get away with it. And we all know what's going on here. It's just another step forward in this fight, and now not only is it happening on TV, but it's happening off TV as well. But as one of my final examples, I would tell you this. Recently in All Elite Wrestling, they lost Kenny Omega, they lost Chris Jericho, and they lost Jon Moxley at around the same time. And even though we missed them, there were bodies ready to just go, whoop, I can step into that spot. And shock horror, this is what WWE was doing during the Attitude Era. Like when Stone Cold Steve Austin had to leave for one reason or another, there was The Rock. And when Dane Johnson went to Hollywood, Triple H was like, well, I can do it. And I know there's varying levels of stars here, but it wasn't like there was a big old gaping hole left in the product. And WWE has the talent too. That is not a problem. I could run off a dozen names right now in order to show you this, but I'm not going to because it would be really boring. But if they don't get the mega push to the moon, you just become another member of the roster. I mean, take Orange Cassidy. Here, All Elite Wrestling has gone, well, we have a piece of fruit that is very popular with some of our audience, so let's make sure we appeal to them. And if you've got a bunch of other people over here like, man, I don't like Orange Cassidy, well, there'll be something else on the menu. But don't do it because it feels new and scary. Give it a go and see where you end up. And none of this means that WWE is going to collapse or their business model is in trouble. They are making so much money, it's ridiculous. But don't point the finger and just go, oh my gosh, blood, when really there's other things going on here. However, that's quite the statement to make, so you know what to do, discuss, and get angry in the comments. Finally too, before I do leave you, there is a magic wand here that will allow you never to see this if you do not want, and it's called a remote control. You'll just go poof and turn it off. And I get the advertisers a little bit different. They're like, well, we don't want Skittles if there is gonna be a bunch of blood. But just tell them, go to Skittles and say, look, we're doing this one match, there's gonna be some blood, maybe we'll move some commercials around. I mean, I don't know how this stuff works, but you cannot pretend in any reality, depending on which one you want to live in, that if you watch Dynamite or Rampage, it is just gore, 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 gore. I mean, Rhino isn't even on their books. And I shall leave you on that terrible joke and remind you to like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head on over to whatculture.com where you can read articles like this and keep up to date with everything between WWE versus AEW. I tell you, it's going to get super crazy in 2022. I just dropped another wrestler's name there by complete accident. Make sure you come follow us on social media because that's a fun thing to do, and we have a ton of videos, whether you are a WWE or an AEW or just a wrestling fan in general. We are here to serve you. I need to end this video quick. My name is Simon for What Culture, and nobody ever makes it to the end of the video, but here's the big surprise. You can watch WWE and AEW and enjoy both. I know, what a crazy compact. You can also watch Impact, you can watch New Japan, you can watch Ring of Honor, GCW. All these things are allowed to be enjoyed, so stay away from those crazy people on Twitter that yell at you. I mean, let's face it, they've probably got nothing else to do. I will see you soon.
Hey you! Yes, you, the wrestling fan! Have you got the January blues? Do other wrestling fans mock you and kick you in the balls for not knowing stuff about AEW, WWE, NXT delete as appropriate? Well, never fear, because What Culture Man is here. I said, What Culture Man is here. And he's here to tell you that if you head to shop.whatculture.com now, you can get your hands on all these great wrestling books, plus magazines, t-shirts and board games. Becoming All Elite by Michael Sidgwick, Development Hell by Michael Sidgwick, shocking wrestling plans you won't believe almost happened, shocking wrestling plans you won't believe actually happened, and 606 wrestling matches to see before you die. Thanks, What Culture Man. What Culture Man is a What Culture creation. DC Comics, please don't sue.